You know that hollow feeling when someone calls you selfless? But deep down, you realize it's just a polite way of saying you're expected to give and never ask for anything back? That's what motherhood became for me. And on that one Christmas night, I finally saw the truth. I was never part of their family. I was the foundation they stood on and forgot existed. I'm Eleanor Graves, and this is the Christmas that changed everything. I used to think I had done everything right. I worked hard, I kept quiet, I sacrificed more than anyone ever asked. That's what good mothers do, right? After my husband died, I didn't crumble. I calculated. I picked up more shifts at the accounting firm, took night work with local businesses, and somehow still made it home in time to cook dinner, help with homework, and tuck my son into bed. Nathan was my everything back then. He was 8 when his father passed, and I made it my mission to give him a life where he wouldn't feel the absence. When he turned 22 and wanted to buy his first home, I gave him $25,000 from my retirement account. "It's not a gift," I told him. "It's a stake in your future." Later, when his second home came into play, the one he now lives in, I contributed $80,000. He insisted I be listed on the deed as a co-owner. "Just in case," he said. Funny how "just in case" starts to mean something entirely different years later. I never asked him to pay me back. I didn't want anything but space. A small downstairs room in the house I helped pay for, and the occasional dinner together where I felt like more than just someone passing salt. I never remarried, never traveled. I put my dreams in a box labeled later and left it on a high shelf. I didn't mind. I thought my reward would be watching Nathan thrive, build a family, and remember who stood beside him when no one else did. But something changed. The boy who used to kiss my forehead and ask if I was tired had grown into a man who forgot I had dreams at all. And that Christmas, when I sat in that beautifully lit house surrounded by laughter and watched him hand out gift after gift, skipping over me like I wasn't even there, that's when the shelf inside me finally cracked. And everything I'd stored up for decades started falling down. Christmas that year was colder than usual. Not the weather, but the room. Nathan had just finished remodeling his kitchen. White marble countertops, brass fixtures, a fridge bigger than my first car. His wife, Leslie, was playing hostess in her glittery red dress, and their 2 children were racing around the new open-concept floor plan like they were in a magazine shoot. I brought homemade pecan pie, like I always did. Nobody asked for it, but I made it anyway. It's what moms do, right? Show up with something sweet and stay out of the way. The dining table was set for 10. My name wasn't on any of the place cards, so I quietly pulled up a folding chair from the garage. Not a word was said. After dinner, Leslie began handing out the gifts. The twins got those hoverboards that cost more than my first paycheck. Nathan gave Leslie a gold bracelet, the kind that looks light but probably weighs $5,000 on a credit card. Even his father-in-law got a box of rare cigars with a handwritten note. Then, nothing. Everyone stared at their opened boxes, comparing colors, laughing over gift receipts. And I sat there with my hands in my lap, unsure if I was supposed to pretend I'd forgotten how to feel. That's when Nathan, still holding his wine glass, casually said, "We didn't know what to get you, Mom. You don't really need anything, right?" Everyone chuckled. I smiled, a small automatic thing I'd learned to do when something hurt. And let me ask you something. Have you ever smiled so you wouldn't cry, just to keep from making others uncomfortable? If you have, let me know in the comments. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. I just felt alone. Later, as I helped load the dishwasher, Leslie handed me a Ziploc bag of leftover green beans and said, "Thanks for your help tonight, Mrs. Graves. It was nice having you." Nice having me. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. But something inside me started shifting. Not breaking, just shifting. I'd spent years thinking love was about giving, but suddenly, I saw it. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a presence, one that tidies up the party and disappears. And that silence I kept all these years? It wasn't grace. It was erasure. It started with a letter. A plain white envelope slipped through my mail slot a week after Christmas. I almost tossed it. Thought it was another flyer or end-of-year bank notice. But something about the logo made me pause. It was from the mortgage company. I hadn't seen their name in years. The house, after all, was supposed to be paid off. Or so I thought. I opened it slowly, sitting at the little kitchen table in the downstairs unit I lived in. The same unit inside the very house I helped Nathan buy. The letter said the bank was finalizing the valuation of collateral for a new business loan, $180,000, backed by the house deed. My name was there. My name. I blinked. Reread it. Again. Nathan had used the house as collateral. The house that carried my $80,000. The house I was still legally co-owner of. The house I lived in, slept in, paid utilities for, even though I only used one floor and never once complained. And he hadn't told me. Not a word. Not over dinner. Not in passing. Not even after I asked about his restaurant plans last fall. And he brushed me off with a, "Don't worry, Mom. You don't need to be involved." That wasn't him keeping me out of a business deal. That was him quietly putting my name on the line and hoping I wouldn't notice, or wouldn't matter. I remember sitting at the table for a long time after that. The kettle boiled and whistled, but I never got up. My pie tin from Christmas was still on the counter, empty. Like me, I thought of all the times I said yes without hesitation. All the times I filled in the blank with, "Sure, I can help," even when it cost me sleep, money, or pride. All the times I believed that doing the right thing would come back around, that it meant something. But I realized something darker that day. I'd become so dependable, they stopped seeing me as a person. Just a signature, a tool, a backup plan, a soft landing for their risks, and maybe worst of all, they assumed I'd never fight back. They thought I was too old, too tired, too loving to ever say no. They were wrong. I didn't confront him. Not right away. Old habits die hard. Especially the one that says, "Don't cause trouble, keep the peace." But something in me had shifted, and this time, instead of swallowing the hurt, I let it settle. I sat with it. Then I called a lawyer. Not to sue, not yet. Just to understand how much damage had already been done, and how much control I still had left. Turned out, quite a bit. Because my name was on the deed. My signature had been required and forged. My ownership was still valid, and that meant I had options. Leverage, voice. Funny how I hadn't felt I had any of those in years. That afternoon, I pulled out an old metal box from the closet. Inside were papers Nathan had probably forgotten I still kept. The original co-ownership agreement from 12 years ago, utility bills I paid, tax records with my name still listed. Proof I wasn't just a guest in that house. I was part of it. I sat there in silence, realizing something that made me feel both ashamed and strangely alive. I'd allowed myself to disappear. In trying to be helpful, invisible, non-intrusive, I'd become a shadow in my own life. I stopped asking questions, stopped expecting respect, and in doing so, I taught everyone around me that my voice didn't matter. Well, it mattered now. I started small, canceled 2 automatic payments, internet and water, both in my name. I contacted the mortgage company to notify them of the forged signature. They opened a case file and said someone would follow up. Then, I called my lawyer again. We discussed options. I had never liked that word before. It always sounded like something salespeople said. But now it felt like fresh air. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin Nathan. I just wanted my dignity back, my voice back. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't thinking about what was best for him. I was thinking about what was right for me. Because maybe love doesn't mean giving until you disappear. Maybe real love, even from a mother, has limits. I left on a Thursday. No announcement, no dramatic speech, no packed audience to clap or beg me to stay. Just one suitcase, one thermos of coffee, and a cabin key I hadn't touched in over 20 years. Tucked away 2 hours from the city, the cabin had once been a dream, something I quietly paid off bit by bit while still working full-time. I never told the kids about it. It wasn't a secret. It just wasn't for them. It was mine. I arrived late afternoon. The air smelled like pine and smoke. The porch creaked under my feet just the same way it always had, and when I opened the door, there it was. The quiet, the good kind, the kind that doesn't ask anything of you. I stood in that silence and let my shoulders drop. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Back in town, Nathan still hadn't realized the mortgage company had frozen the loan. My lawyer had handled it quietly, just like I asked. The forged signature meant the agreement was invalid, and I had every legal right to withdraw my co-ownership and request a buyout of my share. So I did. He'd figure it out soon enough, probably when the bank called. But I wasn't waiting around for his reaction. I was done waiting. I spent the first few days at the cabin cleaning, organizing, putting old books on shelves. I made soup. I lit the fireplace. I wrote in my journal. I even danced a little when Aretha came on the radio. Nobody saw me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. I left behind a house full of people who used my silence like currency. Assuming if I didn't complain, I was content. But here, in this little wooden cabin, I remembered something I hadn't felt in years. I was still a woman, still a person, still capable of starting over. Not because anyone gave me permission, but because I gave it to myself. Some people chase legacy, others chase justice. Me? I was chasing peace. And I was finally getting close. 3 weeks passed before I heard anything. No texts, no voicemails, no "Where are you, Mom?" Then, one morning, just after I finished a bowl of oatmeal on the porch, I saw a black car creeping up the gravel path. It was Nathan, alone. He stepped out of the car like someone who hadn't slept, holding something in both hands, a folder and a grocery bag. I didn't get up. I wasn't angry, just still. He walked toward me slowly. "Mom, can I sit?" I nodded. We sat in silence for a while, the kind you can't rush through. Then he opened the folder. Inside were documents, bank statements, apology letters, proof that the restaurant loan had been officially canceled, that he'd taken full liability, and that my share of the house had been bought out, transferred to my personal account. "I should have asked you," he said, voice rough. "I thought I was doing what men do, taking charge, but I was just taking advantage." I didn't interrupt. I didn't rush to reassure him. I let the truth sit between us. "You were right to walk away," he said. "And I didn't just lose the loan. I lost something bigger." He reached into the grocery bag and pulled out a small box. Inside, a Polaroid camera and a note. "I want to start remembering, if you'll let me." I smiled, just barely. Not because it fixed anything, but because for the first time in years, my son was looking at me, not through me. In the weeks that followed, the others came too. Some slower than others. But they came, not with gifts or apologies, but with ears ready to listen. We didn't rewrite the past, but we stopped pretending it hadn't happened. That was enough. Now, each morning, I wake up in this quiet cabin, not to serve anyone, not to be useful, but just to be. And somehow, That has become the most powerful thing I've ever done. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've given and given until you forgot what it's like to receive, tell me below. What would your cabin look like? And who do you want to become once you stop waiting to be seen? I'm listening.